With Citizen TV, my name is Zinzi Kibiku. Now, tomorrow it is a big day. Why? It is budget day, and this is going to be the 2021 budget. 2.9 trillion, approximately, is what we are looking at. 2.9 trillion. The World Bank says that our GDP for Kenya could plunge this year by a whopping 1.5%. So Yatani's budget is very, very important. It will be having a critical focus on the economic recovery after the current pandemic that we're seeing right now. And away from the pandemic, remember, we already had a year where we were coming from floods, drought, and locusts. On top of that, we've seen budget cuts coming from the executive, judiciary, and parastatals. They will not be exempted from this budget cuts that we'll be seeing. The bigger question, though, is between you and I. Who's going to be the biggest winners of this year's budget? Number one. And number two, what is it in for you and me? And to have this conversation, I am joined by Karanja by way of Skype. He is the CEO of Importers Association. Later, joining us by way of phone, we'll be having Jackson Machui. Stand by for that. Samuel, it's great to see you this morning, representing the voices of the Importers Association here in Kenya. Before we can even dive into all of this, let me just begin by asking for an update. How is Biashara on the ground? These cushions that we've been seeing, these economic cushions we've been seeing from the president from the beginning of March, April, May, are you feeling it on the ground?
Thank you for having me. We are not feeling the effect of the presidential or the president incentive on the ground. Because I remember we had a conversation here earlier, and one of the things that we were questioning is the process of getting the money to the grassroots, because we have platforms which we don't know where the money is being dispensed from. And so there's lack of information of where the resources are coming through. So small, medium entrepreneurs don't know whether to go to the bank or which institution. So when you're told you have 3 billion, which is cushion money for small, medium entrepreneurs, you don't know where to get the money. And so that information is very critical and very important for us to be able to access to it. So on the ground, we don't have any effect of what has been given by the government.
Okay, so here's the thing, Samuel. Tomorrow is Yatani's big day, his first budget as CS of Treasury. What's the first thing? What's the most obvious thing as the CEO of Importers that you feel Yatani should have factored in this budget moving forward, 2021 budget?
I think the budget tomorrow is very important, and some of the things which have really disappointed me is the cuts of some critical ministries, and especially energy. You remember we had a similar conversation, and you said that we have issues with power, especially when you look at the local manufacturers, and also you look at the cottage industries, which we are trying to develop, because with the issue of China not us being able to import many goods from China, we also need to build that sector. And when you look at that sector having a slash of about 21.5 billion shillings, that's a lot of money from that. The other thing which you are looking at is what is the tax breaks that the president had already promised us, and how is he going to do that? Because when you look at SMEs, they have not been working more through, and that's where there is a dive in terms of taxation. So we need to hear from the minister, what is he going to do for small, medium entrepreneurs to push on them even further, and also a clear-cut mode of operation of how they are going to execute that, because we need that information coming on the ground. And even in terms of daily needs that are there in terms of agriculture, in terms of food security, because we heavily depend on that as small, medium entrepreneurs. When you look at agribusiness, can we be able to afford unga or 3 meals in a day? So you need to see a budget that is cushioning the small, medium entrepreneurs. And you see our association as a voice of the Mama Mboga. We have to break it down to the basics and tell them this is how it's going to be in the next financial year.
Are looking at the next financial year in 2 years of President Uhuru Kenyatta finishing his term. Do you think that in the next 2 years, if indeed the Big Four agenda does happen, all those development projects, will they come down to helping the common wananchi, that Zinzi who has a shop in town, in CBD, that Samuel Karanja who has a flight of, let's say, 5 or 10 pikis on the road? Will this Big Four agenda projects come down, really be streamed down to where you and I can feel this economic impact?
If they did it in the right way, I think it can. Number one, you remember one of the four agendas of the president is housing. And I remember when he was launching some houses in, I think, Parklands, he offered and he said that small medium entrepreneurs who are, like, for example, the Juakali enterprise fall under this category. They are going to be, building the doors and also the windows. Having said that, I think the mode of operation is very important on how they are going to implement it. But as we are talking right now, I can tell you without fear of contradiction that I don't think it's going to have any effect based on the short time that is there. And how are you going to go about it? Because right now we need money injected directly into the economy. And when you look at the budget allocations, which the ministry has already given, it has cut, in the most critical ministries. When you look at ICT, where most young people fall under, they have got a slash of about 7.8 billion shillings. So when you look at that, I think, I don't know the rationale behind, what the CS is going to present tomorrow and why he decided to do that.
Right.
But I think money should be put where the mouth is, because when you look at our economy right now is ailing, as you have correctly said, that we are from a drought, we are from the locusts. Right now you see Corona. And you remember we had a conversation last year with the president on the containers which were held at the port of small medium entrepreneurs, and they bring in consolidated goods which are actually the daily products that common mwananchi uses in terms of electronics and all and beauty products. And we as importers, when we bring these things, we also offer a lifeline, because what happens, we come in as importers and we also distribute also as wholesalers. So when you look at that, is the mode of operation of how they are going to go about it, but I'm not optimistic that is going to have any effect.
Promised Jackson Machui, he's an entrepreneur. He's now joining this conversation with Samuel and I by way of phone. Jackson, it's great to be speaking to you this morning. Just as an entrepreneur, straight from the top of your mind, what's the most obvious thing you expect in tomorrow's budget? Jackson, if you can hear me, being an entrepreneur, what's the most obvious thing you expect to hear from Yatani's 2021 budget that you'd like to see?
The first thing is to see how the government is going to get that money. Where is it going to come from? And of course, we know that the bulk of it is coming from the tax. So where is this tax going to come from? And again, remember, tax comes from consumers and businesses.
Right.
So what enabling environment is going to be put for entrepreneurs to put up their businesses and for them to be able to correct, exigence of correction of these taxes. That is foremost what I do want to hear, because the burden of 2.7 trillion seems to be on the shoulders of entrepreneurs and small businesses.
And that's the thing, Jackson, this 2.9 trillion budget is definitely falling on SMEs, the middle income going up, people, individuals. Here's the thing, that SME stimulus package, in our conversation, you described it as knee-jerk. Why?
Well, because it's really just some figure put out there, and then the implementation mechanism has not been created in a way that it flows to the entrepreneurs. Look, the main conduit of any stimulus to SMEs is still banks, and we know that that is still not going to work. It has never worked, so it's not going to work now. And we know that yeah, so therefore, the idea here is to have direct injection of stimulus cash into SMEs. That would be the ideal situation, just like someone said here, that direct injection of cash into the beneficiaries or who should be benefiting from this stimulus is what we want to see and want to hear from the minister tomorrow.
Right. And here's the thing, just like Jackson, you are saying that this 53 billion Kenyan shillings that President Uhuru Kenyatta calls it a stimulus package to sort of cushion this economy. You are saying that you're not feeling it. Jackson calls it a knee-jerk stimulus package for SMEs. Here's the thing, Karanja, that I'd love for you to explain to Kenyans. What this budget, if indeed this money is streamlined the right way and into the right places, as you were saying earlier, what will this budget do for Kenya's informal businesses?
Let me say that, as Jackson is saying, when you talk about a stimulus, you talk about money injected in a sector with very favorable terms, which is not subjected by, is not put under like the financial institutional policies that you have in the country. So I have a problem with how are they going to dispense the 3 billion shillings, if I get your question correct.
Yes.
Because when you look at the stimulus is not is per se is a cushioning, is money cushioning, and the terms should not be subjected under the banking sector. I remember we have had issues with the government saying that by them paying our pending bills, which they have held from maybe even 4 or 5 years ago, that's an economic stimulus. And I think that's not a favor they are doing to small, medium entrepreneurs. They are paying back the money which is supposed to be paid. And so when you're talking about the stimulus, it's a program that must be articulated very well, and also the channels to which that money is going through, even to the small, medium entrepreneurs. And I think one of the challenges that the government has is number one, even the data of who are small, medium entrepreneurs. If you ask, what do you have in terms of small, medium entrepreneurs? Who are they?
Right.
And how are you going to dispense this money? Because these are just figures. And I remember in the presidential stimulus package, he talked about 200,000 agribusiness persons or institutions who are going to benefit from it. Which criteria did they use to get the 200,000 agribusiness people? Do we have more than the 200,000? And
right.
Against how many who are supposed to to get profit from there. So when you look at even the effect of that money being injected should also be well thought through. And the government should be able to liaise with institutions. And I say time and again, the most important thing is an economy is to know who you are, where you are putting your money in. And when you talk about the small, medium entrepreneurs being the backbone of the economy, you must have data of each and every small, medium entrepreneur in the country so that you know where they are and what they are doing and what they need.